Good day, Bised Filipino 3-2 and also to you, Ma'am Tahel. Good day. We are the Group 9 and the topic that we will be discussed today is all about logic. Chapter 9, Logic. Unit 1, Logical Statement and Quantifiers. The term logic is often used but not always in its technical sense. Logic is technically defined as the science or study of how to evaluate arguments and reasoning. And also logic helps us to differentiate correct reasoning from poor reasoning. It is important in the sense that it helps us to reason correctly. Logical reasoning. It is used in mathematics to prove theorems in this chapter. It will be limited to the discussion of mathematical logic. And also mathematical logic or symbolic logic is a branch of mathematics with close connection to computer science. It includes both mathematical study of logic and the application of formal logic to other areas of mathematics. And also mathematical logic includes the study of deductive formal proof system and expressive formal system. Also, mathematical logic has 4 divisions: the set theory, model theory, recursion theory, and the proof theory. And next, the proportion or statement. It is a declarative sentence which either true or false but not both. And also, a proposition has a truth value of a proposition. Proposition that is true and falsity of proposition. Let us examine the example below. Example 1. Manila is the capital city of Philippines. We know that Manila is the capital city of the Philippines. That is true. Therefore, it is a proposition. And next is the what the day is it. It cannot be categorized as the true or false, and therefore it is not a proposition. And next is the he is handsome. The sentence is neither true or false, but he is not specified, thus it is not a proportion. Next is the propositional variable. It is a variable which used to represent a proposition. A formal proposition variable written using propositional logic nation P, Q, and R are used to represent proposition. Makita ra niyo niya sa sunod niya ang topic. And next is a compound proposition. Is a proposition composed of 2 or more simple propositions connected by logical connectives and or if then not if and only if. The exclusive or a proposition which is not compound is said simple or called atomic. Operation on proposition. There are 3 main logical connectives such as conjunction, disjunction, and negation. The following are briefly discussed in this section. Note that T refers to true proposition and F refers to false proposition. Conjunction. The conjunction of the proposition P and Q is compound proposition. P and Q symbolically P kaning nainguan, kaning na arrow sa ibabaw mga kani. Mao na inguan where the symbol is for ag symbol na kay and. Property 1. If P true and the Q true, then P and Q is true. Otherwise, P and Q is false. Meaning the conjunction of 2 proposition is only true if its proposition is true. This table represent the conjunction. Kani. If ang P true, then ang Q true, P and Q is true. Then kung ang P true and then ang Q false, then the conjunction is false because sa giingon ganina dapat nga true pareha sila nga true aron mahimo ang P and Q true. And next is the example 2. Determine the truth value of each other following conjunction. 2 plus 6 equals 9. A man is a mammal. We know that 2 plus 6 is not equal to 9. And the proposition man is mammal, that is true, and the conjunction of the compound proposition is false. Is false because the first statement is false proposition. Next, Manny Pacquiao is a boxing champion and Gloria Macapagal Arroyo is the first female president. We know that Manny Pacquiao is boxer champion that and then that it's true. It's a true proposition. Then Gloria Macapagal Arroyo is not our first female president. Note that Corazon Aquino is the first female female Philippine president. Then therefore the conjunction of the compound proposition is false. Next, Abraham Lincoln is a former US president and the Philippine Senate is compound of 24 senators. Since both proposition of Abraham Lincoln is a former US president and Philippine Senate is composed of 24 senators, then they are both true. Thus the conjunction of the compound proposition is true. Next, the disjunction. The disjunction of the proposition P and Q is the compound proposition or P or Q. Symbolically kaning mo yung symbol kaning B nga kanang murag B. Where the symbol for is or. Then property 2. If P is true or Q true if both P and Q are true, then P or Q is true, otherwise P or Q is false. Meaning the disjunction of two proposition is false only if its proposition is false. Ngunit example sa disjunction table. Kung ang P true, then ang Q true, then ang P or Q is true. Then kung ang P true and then ang Q false, then ang P or Q is true. Binali ni ganiha sa conjunction mo ni opposite. Next, example 3. Determine the true value of each of the following disjunction. 2 plus 6 equals 9, or Manny Pacquiao is a boxing champion. Note that the proposition 2 plus 6 equals 9 is a false, while the proposition Manny Pacquiao is a boxing champion, it is true. Hence, the disjunction of the compound proposition is true. Next, Philippine Senate is composed of 24 senators and Gloria Macapagal Arroyo is the first female Philippine president. Since proposition Philippine Senate is composed of 24 senators, that is true, and the proposition of Gloria Macapagal Arroyo is the first female Philippine president is false. Therefore, the disjunction of the compound proposition is true. Abraham Lincoln is a former US president or man is a mammal. Given the both proposition, Abraham Lincoln is a former US president and the man is a mammal. They are both true, thus the disjunction of the compound proposition is true. Next, negation. Negation of the proposition is P. Is noted by P kanina mo ni symbol sa negation kaning murag balikog nga line. Whereas the symbol for is not ang meaning ana. Then property 3. If P is true, not P is false, meaning the true value of the negation of proposition is always the reverse of the truth value of the original proposition. One example sa negation. Kung ang P gani true, ang opposite ana false gyud. Then kung ang P false, then ang negation is true. Example 4. The following are proposition for P. Find the corresponding not P. 3 plus 5 equals 18. Sophia is a girl. Akeya is not here. Next is the conditional or implication of the proposition, and Q is the compound proposition. If P din Q, symbolically P kaning arrow nga kani pa side. Kani it means that F P, where the symbol or F then P is called hypothesis or antecedent or premise, and Q is called conclusion or consequent or consequence. Property 4. The condition of proposition P F Q is false only when P is true, then Q is false, otherwise P F then Q states that the true proposition cannot imply a false proposition. This is one of the example sa conditional. Kung ang P true, then ang Q true, P if then Q is true. Then kung P true and then Q false, ang P and Q is false. Same rin sila sa ang one ganina katong isa to conjunction. Ang kalahian na nila kaninguan kung ang P gani false, then ang Q false, then ang P if then Q is true. Mura lang ilang kalahian. Example 5. If the proposition if vinegar is sweet, then sugar is sour, the antecedent is vinegar is sweet, tamis, and the consequence is sugar is sour. Example 6. Obtain the truth value of each of the following conditional proposition. If vinegar is sweet, then sugar is sour. 2 plus 5 equals 7. It is a sufficient condition of 4. 6 plus 6 equals 1. And letter C. 14 minus 8 equals 4. Is a necessary condition that 6 plus 3 equals 2. And letter A. Since the proposition vinegar is sweet, and the sugar is sour are both false, therefore the condition of the compound proposition is true. And letter B. The 2 plus 5 equals 7 is a sufficient condition for 5 plus 6 equals 1. Note that 2 plus 5 equals 7 is true, and 5 plus 6 equals 1 is false, because we know that 5 plus 6 is not equals to 1. Thus, the conditional of the compound proposition is false. Given that the next examples, the 14 minus 8 equals 4 is a false proposition, we know that 14 minus 8 is not equals to 4. Then note that while we know that 14 minus 8 equals 6, and while the 6 plus 3 equals 2 is a true proposition. 6 divide 3 is a true proposition. Thus, the conditional of the compound proposition is true. Next, the biconditional of the proposition P and Q is the compound proposition. P if and only if Q. Symbolically, kaning murag duha ka araw nga side by side is ag meaning ani ag dangoan symbol if is for if and only if. Same ra po ni ganiha katong nay symbol tong if din. And next is the property 5. If P and Q are true or both false, then P if and only Q is true. If P and Q have opposite truth values, then P if and only if Q is true. If F and Q have opposite truth values, then P F and only Q is false. Example 7. The determine and truth values of each the following by conditional proposition. Wait, dapat example sa one by conditional. If ang P is true, then Q is true, then P and Q is true. If ang P true, then ang Q false, then P if and only if Q is false. Same rin sila ganiha sa one disjunction, murag mamawala disjunction ganiha. Example 7. 2 plus 8 equals 10. If and only if 6 minus 3 equals 3. Since the statement 2 plus 8 equals 10 and the 6 minus 3 equals 3 are both true, therefore the conditional of the compound proposition is true. And next example, Manila is the capital of the Philippines is equivalent to fish live in the moon. Note that Manila is a capital of the Philippines, that is true proposition, while The fish live in the moon is false. Thus, the conditional of the compound proposition is false. 8 minus 2 is equals to 5 is unnecessary and sufficient for 4 plus 2 equals 7. Given that 8 minus 2 equals 5 and 4 plus 2 equals 7 are both false, thus the conditional of the compound proposition is true. Next, these are the compound words associated with the various connectives. Mo ni gigamit natong connectives ganina katong like sa gingon no ganina kaning nay arrow sa ibabaw kani ang meaning ana P and Q and but also pwede ta magamit og but also in addition or moreover. And next is the sa disjunction. Mo ni symbol sa disjunction kaning B ug forma ang meaning ani or. And next is the negation. Meaning sa negation kaning ang symbol sa negation kaning kaparas gingon nila kaning murag wave. Meaning ani is not. And the conditional kaning arrow pa dong right. It means that then F or then if P then Q mo na. So next is the biconditional kaning duha ka arrow side by side. It means that if and only if. Next the exclusive or kaning plus positive sign nga nailingin means that kaning exclusive or Q. P exclusive or Q. Next is the switching network. A switching network is a collection of wires and switches connecting to two terminals X and Y. A switch may be either open or O or closed to C. An open switch will not permit the current to flow. The figure 1 illustrates the diagram of single wire, open switch, and closed switch. Figure 2 shows the series of parallel switching network. May example sa single wire, straight point to X to Y. May po example sa open switch P. Nahizay murag ni tipas nga line. And next is the closed switch. Nahizay tulo ka point X, P, and Y which straight ra. Same na sa single wire but the single wire has two terminals ra. Then the series switch. Mura ra ning duha ka open switch nga nay duha ka pasaka nga line kani upat pa yung kaning terminals kaning X, P, Q, and Y. Kani ding mga mo ni sila gitawag og mga logical connectives kani. And then the parallel switch P or B kani mo ni nawala man dira kani mo ni mura ra ni kaning open switch pero ginguan mura gitipo ra ni open switch o kaning series switch which napo ni sila upat ka terminals and then gitipo ra sila. Next is the true tables of the network switching na mo ni like sa dyan kaning P and Q pareha sila sa series circuit. The two switches are complementary if one switch is open and the other is closed. And the vice versa. In addition, the two switches are said to be equivalent if they have the same electrical properties concerning the flow and non-flow current. Kaning C mo ni true sa series. Kana. And then ang O false na kapreha kay kapreha man sila series ang sa P or Q. Then pareha sila ani. Then sa P or Q or Q is parallel circuit sa aning sa circuit niya isa mo na same sila. Next, example 8, construct switching network equivalent in each of the following compound. A, P close kani mo ni solution sa A. P and R kani. Case 1, when P equals T and Q equals T, then mao ni isa ka P negation sa P, and then P and negation Q, then isa ka ngwan sa negation nya Q and then Y. Mo ni sa case number 1 karida harto wala man kani mo ni kani sa negation sa case number 1, and then case number 2 when P equals T and then Q equals F. X to Y. P negation P Q and then P and then negation Q. Then sa gawas ang negation Q. Same ra ni sila tanan. Then next is the quantifiers. Quantifiers, a predictive or open statement. It is statement thus the truth depends on the value of one or more variables. Predicates become proposition 1. Every variable has a bound by assigning a universe discourse. And also, most of propositions are defined in terms of predicates. For example, X is an even number. It is a predicate, thus the truth depends on the value of X. The predicate is true for X equals 2 since 2 is an even number, but false for X since 3 is an odd number. Next is the propositional function. Is a sentence Px, it becomes a statement only when variable X is given particular value. Propositional functions are denoted as P, X, and Q times X and R times X, and so on. And the independent variable of proposition function must have a universe of discourse, which is a set from which variable can take values. Next, this table represents the common words associated with various connectives. Mo ni symbol sang 1 sa extension sa quantifier. Mo ni symbol niya murag 3 nga bali. And translation ani 1 direct says there is some for which for at least one such thing unsatisfying. And mo po ni sang 1 sa universal mo ni jang symbol kaning A nga bali, which means ang translation ani niya is for all, for each, for every, for any, given any. Next, if the universe of discourse P is P times P1, P2, and P, and then universal X, P times X is P times P1 and P times P2 and P times Tn and 3x and extension 3p times x f and only f, then from this we can easily determine that the truth values of the quantifiers. Next, the table 4 and the table 5, the quantified statement under negation. Statement all A and RB negation. Amo negation sang 1 sa statement og statement gani all A RB, and the negation is some A are not B. And then if a statement is not A or B, then ang negation ana some A are B. Then kung ang statement some A are not B, then ang negation is all are B. Binali ra gyapon ni ang opposite sa statement, then mo ang negation. Next is the 9.2 truth tables, equivalent statement, and the tautologies. Truth tables. This section shows the construct of compound proposition through truth tables, which referred as standard truth forms. Let us examine the example below. The example 1. Negation P or negation Q. And then the P, F, then Q. And P, F, then only F, Q. And letter C, negation P, or and Q, and or P and Q, negation Q. Next. These are the solutions ang one sa tong ingon ganiya tong sa truth tables. Negation na mo ni example. Kung ang P gani true, then ang negation sa P, siyempre kabaw naman ta opposite sa true, false man, morning false na kani. Then kung ang P false, then ang negation ana true. Then sa Q kung ang negation sa kung ang Q gani true, then ang negation sa true, it means false. Moro na simply ra. We need to determine the P negation P and Q before obtaining the truth values of negation P or negation Q. Then the next is the P, F, P, then Q. Then mo ni. Kung ang nawala man. Kung ang P gani, kung ang P gani true, ang iyang negation sa iyang Q is false. Then kung ang Q gani false, then ang iyang negation is true. Mura pare-pareha rin sa negation sa example sa A. Then kung ang P, F and only FQ, then ang iyang false. Ano ta magbase sa P ug sa sa negation niya. Kung ang P true gani, then ang negation Q is false, then ang P, F and only F negation Q is false. Then kung ang P, F, then P, F and only FQ is negation of Q is may mo na siyang false. Kay ang false sa P, F din and only negation Q, then same man sila sa negation sa Q. Then mong false ang P, F and only din Q, and the negation sa iyang Q. Then same na sila sa example A, sa C and D. Equivalent statement. This section covers the definition of logically equivalent proposition and the laws of logical equivalent, which are supported with some examples. And also logically even two propositions are said to be logically equivalent or equivalent if they have the same truth value for every row of the truth value of table, that is x and y is a tautology. Symbolically, x equals y. And example number 2 shows the following are equivalent. Kani. P. Kung ang P gani true, then ang iyang R true, because kung kay iyang Q true man, then ang R niya true. Mag-base niya kung ang duha ka statement is true, then ang R is true. Then kung ang P gani true, then ang false, then ang Q false, then it is true. Kaya kung pwede ra man ni kung basig isa ka statement gani ang true, then ang R is true. Then sa arita sa Q and R. Q or R. If ang Q is true, then ug ang R gani po is true, then ang Q or R is true. If ang Q gani false, then ang R is true, then Q and R is true. Kay same rin sa pagkuha sa R. Kung ang isa ka statement is kanang true, then the Q or R is true. Then the one. Next is the tautologies. There are three important classes of compound statement, namely tautology, contradiction, and contingency, which are briefly discussed below. Tautology is a compound statement that is true for all possible combination of truth values of the propositional values are called the logically true. Next is the contradiction. It is a compound statement that is false. For all possible combination of truth values, it is propositional variables, also called the logically false or the absurdity. Binali ni siya sa tautology kini contradiction. Kay kung ang tautology is logically true, ang contradiction is logically false. Next is the contingency. It's a compound statement that can be either be true or false depending on the truth values of the propositional variables are neither tautology or nor contradiction. Kaning contingency is neither ni siya tautology or contradiction. Murag ani siya sa ani siya sa tunga sa duha. Pwede siya ma-base sa tautology, pwede po siya sa contradiction. And next is the example 3. And then mo solution sa example number 3. Kung ang negation P or Q to F and P then Q is 1, kung ang P true then ang Q true, then ang negation ani is false. Kay like what I said ganiha nga kung ang true ag 1 statement sa negation ana is false. Since all the truth values of the compound statement negation P or Q is F then Q are true, thus it is a tautology. Next is the example letter B. P F then Q and P F then negation Q. Kung ang P gani true ani din ang Q true, then ang P F then Q is true. Dapat man ani ag duha ka statement is true na kay kung ang P true gani then ang Q false, then ang P F then Q is false. Next is the letter C, negation P or Q. Q is exclusive to exclusive P F then Q. May example sa iyang sa iyang table. Kung ang P true din ang Q true, ang negation ani is false. Ang negation sa duha ka statement is true man, then ang negation false. Then kung ang negation P or Q is 1, ang isa ka statement is true and then isa is false, then it is true. Kay pwede ra man ta makakuan sa isa ka statement. Kung true isa ka statement, pwede ra na sa mahimong true. Then next is the same running negation P or Q sa P F din Q. Kung 1 gani ag isa true, then ang isa false, then it means true. Next is the Oh, that's all for my report, and the next reporter will be Twinkle Dumanat.
So, good day everyone. I'm Twinkle M. Dumanat, and I continuation chapter 9 about logic. So, unit 9.3, conditional, biconditional, unrelated statement. There are different ways to express the conditional proposition P then Q. The conditional proposition P then Q can be expressed in 3 variations using the logical connectives. So, conditional, the statement is P then Q, while the converse of P then Q, the statement is Q then P. So, the inverse of P then Q, the statement is not P and then not Q. The lastly is contrapositive of P then Q. The statement is not Q then not P. The truth table below showed the comparison on variation of conditional proposition. So, observe that P then Q is equivalent to not Q then not P, while Q then P is equivalent to not P then not Q. On the other hand, P then Q is not equivalent to Q then P and not P then not Q. So here's the example. Given the conditional proposition, if Akea goes to school, then Sophia will go home. I determine the converse, inverse, and the contrapositive of the proposition. So the converse of the sentence is if Sophia will go home, then Akea goes to school. Converse means that if Q then P, so switch the second part sentences which the first part. So converse is if Sophia will go home, then Akea goes to school. While the inverse is simply the negation of the conditional statement. If not P, then not Q, that is inverse. So the inverse is if Akea does not go to school, then Sophia will not go home. While the contrapositive is basically to revise of negation of conditional statement. So contrapositive is if Sophia will not go home, then Akea does not go to school. So, Unit 9.4 Symbolic Arguments. A. Arguments. A proof is argument from hypothesis, assumption to a conclusion. Each type of argument follows the laws of logic and rule inference. Logic proofs usually begin with premises statements that allowed to be assumed, while conclusion is the statement that needs to be proven. So let us examine one rule of inference to prove the validity of arguments. One of the rules of inference is the rule of detachment. Rule of detachment or modus ponens means the methods of affirming. The truth table below shows the is a tautology. So table 9.8 shows the standard for valid arguments, which are modus ponens, law of syllogism, modus of tollens, and disjunction syllogism. So the preceding examples show how to represent statement in logical symbols and the use of rule of inference to prove the validity of the argument. So here's the example. Example number 1, rule of detachment. Sophia wins 20 million lotto. And letter B, Sophia wins 20 million lotto, then Akea will put up a business. So therefore, Akea will put up a business. So here example number 2, law of syllogism. A. If 18 is divisible by 6, then 6 is divisible by 3. Second, if 6 is divisible by 3, then 18 is divisible by 3. So therefore, if 18 is divisible by 6, then 18 is divisible by 3. So here example number 3, modus tollens. A. If Manny Villar is elected the Philippines president, then Erap Estrada will pledge as cabinet secretary. Next is letter B. Erap Estrada did not pledge as a cabinet secretary. So therefore, Manny Villar was not elected Philippine president. So here example of role of disjunctive syllogism. So A is Gregorius' pencil is in his bag or it is unstable. B. Gregorius' pencil is not in his bag. So therefore, Gregorius' pencil is on his table. Example number 5. Establish the validity of arguments. So here the solution of steps 1. P then not Q. Reasons of premise. Second is not Q then not R. The reasons of premise. Number 3, P then not R. The reason of law of syllogism. And step 4, P, a reason of premise. And step 5, therefore, role of detachment. Letter B. Steps 1, P, then Q, the reason of premise. R, then S is the reason of premise. So P, then S is the law of syllogism. So W, V, is not S. And that's all of my topic.
Hello everyone, I am Margie Gamayot, the next reporter, and I will continue the topic of Miss Twinkle Dumanat, the symbolic arguments. So, fallacies. Logical fallacies refers to faulty reasoning and logic of an argument. It is advantageous to know logical fallacies in order to avoid them in an argument. There are different types of fallacies that we might use to present our position. The following are the list of common types of fallacies with their corresponding sample. First is appeal to authority or argumentum ad very condemn. It is an argument that occurs when we accept or reject a claim merely because of the source of authorities who made their position on a certain argument. So, this fallacy occurs when someone accept or reject a claim solely based on the authority or expertise of the person making the claim. So, the example of one is the government should impose the death penalty. Many respected people, such as the former Secretary of Justice, have publicly stated her opposition to it. So, the government should impose the death penalty because the former Secretary of Justice, who is highly respected, opposes. Then, example number 2 is Floyd Mayweather signs autographs with Parker pen. So, evidently, Parker pen is the most reliable pen on the market. Number 2, appeal to force or argumentum ad baculum. It is an argument which attempts to establish a conclusion by threat or intimidation. So, this fallacy involves using threats or intimidation to establish a conclusion. It is an attempt to persuade through fair rather than logical reasoning. The example of this is, you will support my idea and tell the others that I am right, because if you don't, I will do everything for you to lose your job. Example number 2, if you don't believe in God, you won't go to heaven. Pero dili man siguro pud sa ingon nga og di ka motuo sa Ginoo, dili ka moduong sa sa langit. Na may uban kay motuo sa Ginoo pero di mo pud moduong sa langit. Pero wala naman pa depende ra na nimo. Then number 3 is appeal to ignorance or argumentum ex silentio. It is an argument supporting a claim merely because there is no proof that it's wrong. So, This fallacy occurs when someone supports a claim by arguing that there is no proof to the contrary. It assumes that if something hasn't even proven false, it must be true. So, example 1. Since time, people have been trying to prove that God exists, but no one has yet been able to prove it. Therefore, God does not exist. And example number 2, if you can say that there aren't Martians living in Mars, so it's safe for me to accept there are. So number 4, appeal to pity or argumentum ad misericordiam. It is an argument that involves an irrelevant or highly exaggerated appeal to pity to get people to accept a conclusion by making them feel sorry for someone. This fallacy involves using an irrelevant or exaggerate appeal to pity in order to convince others to accept a conclusion. It manipulates emotions rather than presenting valid reasoning. Example is, you should give me an on this assignment because my dog died and I've been really stressed. And pwede sa dog, Mark has worked hard on his research project and he will be depressed if he fails. For these reasons, you must give him a passing grade. And example number 2, the city engineer is a vital part of this city. If he is sent to prison, the city and his family will suffer. Therefore, you must find in your heart to forgive him. Number 5, appeal to the people or argumentum ad misericordiam. It is an argument that the opinion of the majority is always valid. So, example number 1, most Filipino like soda, therefore soda is good. Example number 2, everyone I know is voting for Juan de la Cruz, so he's probably the best choice for mayor. Then, number 6, argumentum ad hominem, Latin for the man. So, it is an act on the character of a person of his opinions or arguments. It is a tactic used by an adversary when they do not have a logical counter argument. So example number 1, don't listen to Peter's assertions on instruction. He is simpleton. Example number 2, you can't believe that presidential candidate is going to lower taxes. He's a liar. Number 7, circular argument or petitio principii. If a premise of an argument presupposes the truth of its conclusion, meaning the argument takes granted what it's supposed to prove. So, sample anis is Senior Chess Escudero is a good communicator because he speaks effectively. Example number 2, God exists because the Holy Bible says so. The Holy Bible is true, therefore, God exists. Number 8, equivocation. It is an argument used in 2 or more different senses or meanings within a single argument. And these fallacies uses ambiguous language or words with multiple meanings to make an argument appear stronger or more valid than it actually is. For example, number 1 is giving financial support to charity is the right thing to do, so charities have the right to our finances. Example number 2, some real number less than any number, therefore some real numbers are less than itself. So, number 9, fallacy of division. A reasoning which assumes that the characteristic of a group is also the characteristic of each individual in the group. So, for example, number 1 is University of the Philippines is the best university in the country. Therefore, every student from UP is better than any other university in the country. Example number 2, your family is crazy. That means that you are crazy too. Di man siguro. Number 10, False dilemma. It is an argument which implies one or two outcomes and is inevitable and both have negative consequences. But actually, there could be more choices possible. So example number 1 is, if you don't vote for this candidate, you must be Antichrist. Example number 2, you either broke the glass door or you did not. Which is it? Then number 11, hasty generalization. It is an argument that a general conclusion in a certain condition is always true based on insufficient or biased evidence. So, for example, ani is, a MacBook broke after a month, so there must be something wrong in the manufacture of MacBook. Example number 2, my cousin said that mathematics subject were hard and the one I'm enrolled in is hard too. And all mathematics classes must be hard. Number 12, read the hearing. It is an argument which introduces a topic related to the subject at hand. So example ani is, it is diversionary. Read the hearing. It is an argument which introduces a topic related to the subject at hand. It is diversionary tactic to avoid key issues, often way of avoiding opposing argument rather than addressing them. Example number 1. Some politicians may be corrupt, but there are corrupt police, corrupt lawyers, and even corrupt leaders of the church. Sakto man pod. There are also many honest police officers. Therefore, let's put corrupt politician in perspective. Example number 2. I now forget to clean the toilet yesterday, but nothing I do pleases you. But nothing I do pleases you. And then number 13 is slippery slope or snowball domino theory. It is an argument which claims a sort of chain reaction, usually ending in some extreme, and after ludicrous will happen, but there's really not enough evidence for such assumption. Example number 1, if high school students are given 15 minutes rather than a 5 minutes break between classes, they will just start skipping classes. Then example number 2, if I fail algebra, I won't be able to graduate. If I don't graduate, I probably won't be able to get a job and may very well end up like a beggar. Number 14, strawman fallacy. It is an argument that misrepresents position of the opponent in an extreme or exaggerated from or attacking the weaker and irrelevant portion of an argument in order to make it appear weaker than it actually is. Example ani is, congressman who does not support the proposed national minimum wage increase hates the poor. Then example 2, a mandatory helmet law of motorcycle drivers could never be enforced. You can't issue tickets to dead people. Next is Unit 9.5, Arguments and Euler diagrams. So, a lot of arguments involving set usage quantifiers, all, some, and none. So, a symbolic argument consists of a set of premises and a conclusion, and we generally denoted by symbolic form to determine its validity. We say that an argument is valid when its conclusion necessarily follows from a given set of premises, otherwise it is invalid or fallacy. When it does not necessarily follow from the given set of premises, an argument is composed of premises and a conclusion in which the premises are intended to prove or at least provide some evidence for the conclusion. Syllogist argument or syllogism is a form of argument with validity is determined by Euler diagrams. An Euler diagram is a method is a method to determine whether argument is valid or is a fallacy which uses circles to represent seats in syllogistic arguments. This method is similar to the Venn diagram, where circles are used to denote set, with overlap indicating shared elements, disjoint circles indicating no shared elements, and a circle contained within another circle indicating a subset. So, example number 1, use Euler diagram to determine whether the following arguments is valid or invalid. All cell phones are electronic devices. All electronic devices are expensive. Over my new cell phone is expensive. So the solution. The first argument state that the cell phone are inside the region. So mo ni kani cell phone inside the region mo ni. Electronic inside the region electronic devices. Ani kani mo ni. And then the second argument state that electronic devices